Good day, everyone. I hope that you're all doing well, especially after the recent Typhoon Uwan. I hope and pray that the aftermath of the typhoon is minimal and that your families are all safe. Yes. So, to compensate for the days that we weren't able to meet in this subject, I, Pauline Arcirano, your discussant today, will be discussing the next topic in special relativity, space and time, specifically the first postulate of special relativity. Okay, let's start. So, by the end of the lesson, students will be able to first is explain and state the first postulate of relativity, identify and describe real-world scenarios that demonstrate the first postulate of special relativity, and reflect on personal experiences in or around moving vehicles to explain how the first postulate of relativity disproves absolute motion and affirms the consistency of physical laws across inertial frames. Okay, so without further ado, let's start by having our first activity titled The Man Who Can't Be Moved. So kindly watch the short clip and there will be a question that you will be answering after we watched the video. Janela is in a bus alone and falls asleep. After some time, he noticed that the windows are closed and cannot open them. Thus, he cannot discern whether the bus is moving at a constant velocity or at rest. So, what do you think should Janela do? So, if you would suggest a way for Janela to determine whether the bus is moving or not, what would your suggestion be? Is it A, drop something? B, jump? C, stick a pendulum on the ceiling of the bus? Or letter D, none of the above? So let's figure out the answer as we proceed with our discussion. Now, let us move on our second activity titled In My Perspective. So this will be accomplished by group and I will be presenting a video clip once again and then a guide question will be presented for the group to answer. So I will be sending the list of the groupings in our group chat. Okay, now let's watch the short video. Okay, here are the guide questions for the groups to answer. So first question, in the video, how did the path of the ball move for the person catching it? How about for someone watching beside the escalator? Why do you think this happens? Then for second question, if the ball's motion looks different from the two views, do you think it follows different laws or forces depending on where the observer is? Why is that so? Okay, so the activities we had earlier may give you a gist of what the first postulate of relativity is about. It is okay if it's still vague for you or you're still uncertain about it. So to clear this up, let's define some terms to become further acquainted in our discussion today or with the topic. First, let us define an event. an event is a physical happening that occurs at a certain place and time. So, example of this is this moving car. It is an example of event. The car is moving at a certain place and time. Another example is when I clap. The moment I clapped was an event that occurred in a specific place and time that was seconds ago. Okay, that is event. Next, let's define reference frame. Reference frame consists of a set of x, y, or z axis, also called coordinate system, and a clock or a time. So now we have a reference frame. We have here an illustration, figure 28.1. We have here two reference frames for an event occurring, which is a space shuttle lifting off. So the first reference frame is an Earth-based reference frame, and the other is the plane-based reference frame. So we know that the person on the ground or the Earth-based reference frame, as well as the person on the plane-based reference frame, have specific coordinates to locate their position. So the person on the ground is standing at specific x, y, and z coordinates at a given time relative to the lift-off of the shuttle. Similarly, for the person in the plane, he or she is also assigned to a specific or distinct seat that has its own coordinates at a given time. So that is for our reference frame. Now, let's recall our previous knowledge about the Newton's first law, which is the law of inertia. So the law of inertia is generally the resistance of an object to change its state, be it in motion at a constant speed or at rest. Let us first watch this video clip for us to visualize what inertia is and how inertia works. Okay, now that we have watched the video, let's use this dinosaur toy placed on a trampoline as an example. So in a few moments earlier, we can see that the toy is at rest. But when a ball was dropped, a net external force was added and experienced by the toy. However, you may observe that the toy was momentarily suspended in the air and soon moved downwards. And that is inertia in action, the resistance of the object to change its state. That at first, it was staying at rest, but when a net external force was added, it was still resisting, but since there is a net external force, then its state was changed. Okay. Now, let's combine the terms inertia and reference frames. So, inertial reference frame is defined as the net force acting on a body, which is zero. There is no net force acting on a body, so the body is either remaining at rest or moving at a constant velocity. So, we can consider that a reference frame is an inertial frame when it obeys the law of inertia. Inertial reference frame are those that are moving at a constant velocity, meaning it has a constant speed in a direction. So, also, inertial reference frames are those that are stationary relative to objects surrounding them. So, here in the image, we see two inertial reference frames that are present. So, the man in the airplane and the man on the ground. we know that both the man on the ground and the man in the plane have distinct coordinates. Yeah, have distinct coordinates at any moment in time. So, given that the reference frame is the man on the plane first, how can he say that I can see the man on the ground is going backwards? So, here it is. The man riding the airplane, considering that the plane is moving at a constant velocity relative to the man on the ground, is also moving at a constant velocity. Meaning, from his frame of reference, the man in the airplane, he can saw himself as not moving at all relative to his immediate surroundings, such as his seat. Because as the airplane is moving at a constant velocity, the man in the airplane is moving at a constant velocity too. So that's why he sees the man on the ground to moving backward relative to him. Okay? So for the reference frame of the man on the ground, he sees the plane moving forward relative to him, since he can view himself as a stationary object relative to his environment. So the moving airplane will be moving forward. Now, you might be wondering why I mentioned an external net force changing the state of dinosaur toy earlier. So, the meaning of the net force acting on a toy, the meaning of the net force acting on a body being zero in this case, in the given definition, is that no net external force would change the state of these reference frames. So for example, the man on the ground will be will be stationary relative to the plane, as long as the plane is moving at a constant velocity. Okay? Then, the man on the plane will be moving at a constant velocity as well, or having a uniform speed along with the plane, provided that there will be no change in speed or direction that will be occurring in the plane or to the plane. So, thus, the plane will be moving at a uniform speed as it observes the movement of the objects surrounding it. Okay? Let's now proceed. Now, let's go back to Janella. So, did you get a hint from our discussion as to what should be done in a situation to know whether the bus is at rest or moving at a constant velocity? So here, the choices are drop something, jump, stick a pendulum on the ceiling of the bus, and none of the above. Actually, here the correct suggestion would be none of the above. Why? Considering that he cannot see his external environment from the bus, he can't really tell whether the bus is at rest or moving at a constant velocity, because from an inertial reference frame, everything is relative. Okay? So, dropping something, jumping, or hanging a pendulum from the ceiling of the bus would not give him any clue about the bus state. The objects or actions he would perform would look the same to him. So if he drops something, it would just fall vertically. If he jumps, he would just land at the same position as he was. And for the pendulum, it won't move. This is because he cannot discern nor feel whether the bus is moving at a constant velocity or at rest. Okay? However, if the bus accelerates, then he could tell that the bus is moving or at rest. Okay? When we accelerate something, it changes in speed. Meaning, we can say that, okay, the bus is moving. But, since it is not accelerating because it it is having a uniform velocity, then he can really tell what can of since everything is relative. If the what do you call this? If the bus, if the windows of the bus are open, people on the outside of the bus or on the ground can see the changes or the things that he is doing. Okay, so yes. So for the objects that are accelerating, we will be exploring that later on. Now, let us define the first postulate of relativity. So, also called the relativity postulate. So, here, inertial reference frames are at the heart or the foundation of the first postulate of relativity or the relativity postulate. Okay, it states that the laws of physics are the same in every inertial reference frame, meaning laws of physics have no favorites. They are the same only in, I mean, they have no favorites because the laws of physics are the same only in every inertial reference frame. Okay? Remember that the laws of physics are all the same in every inertial reference frames. Okay. Here we have a figure 37.1. We have two magnets and a coil and a galvanometer that measures small current electric readings. So in figure 37.1a, the magnet moves relative to the coil. And in figure 37.1b, the coil moves relative to the magnet. Okay, we can observe from the illustration that whether the magnet or the coil was moved, it resulted in the same induced electric current reading as displayed by the galvanometer. Okay, so what does this imply for the relativity postulate? So this basically means that for inertial reference frames, the laws of physics governing the result, such as in this case the Faraday's law, is the same regardless of the frame. So what do we mean by that? For example, the magnet being the stationary inertial reference frame in 37.1b would yield the same induced current reading as when the coil become the stationary inertial reference frame in 37.1a and vice versa. It doesn't matter what magnet or the coil would be moved, considering that they are both inertial reference frames, either at rest, the other is at rest, or the other is moving at a constant or uniform speed, the readings will be the same. So the laws of physics for both setup will be the same. Okay, so another example where inertial reference frames are evident is from the video that we have watched earlier. Assuming that the person riding the escalator is moving at a constant velocity, it is true that the path taken by the ball would be different for a viewer beside the escalator and a viewer moving with the ball. Okay, so from an observer beside the escalator, which we can assign as the stationary inertial frame relative to the person moving with the escalator, the ball follows a parabolic path. So, from the perspective of the person moving with the ball, the person moving with the ball, meaning the person in the escalator, on the escalator, which can be assigned as the moving inertial frame, assuming that is moving at a constant speed or velocity, the ball only moves vertically, straight up and down. Okay? The reason for the parabolic path is that the observer being stationary relative to the person on the escalator sees two combined motions: the vertical displacement due to the throw and the gravity, and a constant horizontal displacement due to the escalator's motion. Okay, so the influence of the horizontal movement of the person and the vertical displacement of the ball results in the parabolic path that we can observe from the image here on my left. Okay, then mathematically, the measurements for the total mechanical energy of the ball would be different in the two frames, for the side view and the view under the ball. However, the underlying law, such as the law of conservation of energy, will still be evident and constant or valid in both inertial reference frame. So we'll show a mathematical proof later on. Okay. Now, we have here a flawed reasoning. It states that if energy is conserved, it must have the same value in every inertial reference frames. So why do you think that it is a flawed reasoning? So the answer is the energy measurements will vary between observers, but each observer will still see or observe energy being conserved in their own frame. It is true they will have different measurements, but these different measurements do not affect the actual physical event, such as the laws of physics remaining the same for all inertial observers. Okay, so here is an example. To visualize this, let us use an example. So this illustration is from a video by Professor Dave Explains. So there is an event where a man inside a train drops a ball with a mass of 1 kilogram from a height of 2 meters. So the train moving at a constant velocity of 30 meters per second. So in the illustration, we have two inertial reference frames. So we have the man in the train's reference frame, and we have the reference frame of the man on the ground. So here we can consider that the reference frame of the man in the train's reference frame is the moving inertial frame at a constant velocity of 30 meters per second relative to the ground. And the man on the ground frame will be our stationary inertial frame relative to the train. So let's now compute for the total mechanical energy of the ball based on the two inertial reference frames in this illustration. Okay, let us first have the reference frame of the man inside a train. Okay, so we have the given height of 2 meters. The ball is held 2 meters above relative to the train floor. Then we have a gravity of 9.81 meters per second, and the mass of the ball is 1 kilogram. And here we have the velocity of the ball as 0 meters per second. So why thus the velocity of the ball is 0 meters per second? So mind you that the train is moving at 30 meters per second. And also the man in the train is moving at 30 meters per second. So in his frame of reference, he can see that he is not moving. Considering that we cannot see the outside, okay? So considering that both the man and the train is moving at 30 meters per second, the ball he is holding having a zero velocity because it is relative to him. Okay? So the kinetic energy of the ball is dependent on its velocity, described by the formula of kinetic energy, 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. Here, the velocity of the ball relative to the man is 0, as I was saying earlier, because at the moment it's held, the ball is not moving relative to him. Therefore, the kinetic energy is 0, as we can see here in our solution. Okay? Now, for the potential energy, we use the formula mass times gravity times the height. Then, substituting the values that we have, we got 19.62 kilograms meter squared over second squared, and we know that 1 joule is equal to 1 kilogram meter squared over second squared, meaning the potential energy is approximately 20 joules. Now, due to the conservation of energy, the total mechanical energy remains 20 joules at all times in this reference frame. We just add the two values, the value for our kinetic energy and for the value of our potential energy, meaning that the total mechanical energy, or the TME, of the man in the train's reference frame is 20 joules. Okay, how about for the man on the ground frame? Now, with the same given, we just have here our velocity of 30 meters per second, because we know that the train is moving 30 meters per second relative to the man on the ground. So using the same formula for kinetic energy, we get the kinetic energy of the ball relative to the man on the ground as 450 joules. And for our potential energy, using the same values or the given here, we got 20 joules. In adding these values to get the TME, or the total mechanical energy, we got 470 joules on the ground frame. So we can see that the total mechanical energy for the different frames is different, and the man in the train for him, the total mechanical energy of the ball is 20 joules, but for the man on the ground, the total mechanical energy of the ball is 470 joules. So we can see that the measured values are different, but keep in mind that these total mechanical energy values are conserved within each frame, and the meaning as from the inside here in the train reference, the the potential energy of 20 joules will be conserved as the man drop the ball. The kinetic energy would be 20 joules as well. So the TME is conserved in both reference frame. It is also the same case in our reference frame here for the man on the ground. But having different values doesn't mean that they did not obey the relativity postulate. So still, the laws of physics are all the same in every inertial reference frame. For both inertial reference frame, the total mechanical energy was still conserved. Laws of conservation of energy is still obeyed in the inertial reference frame. Okay, now let's check your current understanding with postulate check question number 1. So about the relativity postulate. So what if the frame of reference is accelerating? Is it still classified as inertial reference frame? What do you think? Okay, here we have a motorcycle that is accelerated. Is it still considered as inertial reference frame? The answer is no. Remember that inertial reference frames are those reference frames where the observers are at rest or moving at a uniform or constant velocity, meaning they are not accelerating, they are not speeding up or slowing down. So if you got the same answer, well done. But if not, that's okay. Feel free to replay the video or the parts that you are confused of. So you may also message me via Messenger, okay, if you have questions. And I suggest that you may want to review the concepts about speed, velocity, and acceleration if you are still getting confused about these terms. Okay, now let us have our postulate check question number 2. Since an inertial reference frame is one in which a body is either at rest or moving at a constant velocity, and Newton's first law holds true, does this imply the existence of absolute rest or absolute velocity? A. Yes, because the Newton's law require a fixed universal frame of reference. B. No, because motion is always relative to the observer's frame of reference. And C. Yes, but only if the body is in deep space away from all forces. Okay, so what do you think the correct answer is? The correct answer is letter B. So why B? Let's rationalize. A and C is wrong because for A, there is no such thing called the universal reference frame. Okay, everything is relative to one another. Remember that. So the reality is that everything is moving. Even the Earth is moving relative to other planets and galaxies. We just assumed that some reference frames to be inertial or assigning them for us to have quantities such as speed and velocity. So there is no such thing as absolute rest or absolute velocity. Okay? There is no such thing that an object is forever at rest or forever moving. We just assume that there are things that are not moving relative to this thing because it is moving and vice versa. Okay. So for letter C, it is also wrong because it invalidates the relativity postulate. Remember that even experiments done in deep space would experience the same physical laws as they would on Earth, and an observer in deep space still couldn't tell if they were stationary or coasting at 1,000,000 miles per hour without looking at another object. So remind you I remind you that the concept of absolute rest does not exist, as well as the absolute velocity. So why is letter B is correct? So we know that this letter B supports the first postulate of the relativity postulate. Everything is relative to the observer's frame of reference that is either stationary relative to a moving object at a constant speed, or it could be the object moving at a constant speed relative to a stationary object. Okay? Okay. Now, let's talk about the non-inertial reference frame. So a non-inertial reference frame is a reference frame that is subjected to acceleration or non-zero net external forces. It does not satisfy the Newton's first law of motion. So the said scenario is an example of a non-inertial frame. So here, a man that is accelerating, driving a motor and accelerating, he could be speeding up or slowing down. So, since the motor cycle is accelerating or could be decelerating, there is a non-zero net external force being experienced by the motorcycle. Therefore, the laws of physics, like Newton's first law, will appear different or invalid within this reference frame that is accelerating. Furthermore, in non-inertial reference frames, the first postulate of relativity holds untrue. Okay. Now, how does the relativity postulate um, redefine or reshape the classical mechanics? So first is the relativity postulates, such as stating that the laws of physics are the same in all inertial reference frame, fundamentally reshape the classical or the Galilean, or sometimes called Newtonian, relativity by challenging the assumptions about the nature of space and time, primarily through the elimination of the hypothetical ether. So, the elimination of the idea of the hypothetical ether is from the Galilean relativity. Okay? So, in Galilean relativity, concepts about kinematics or dynamics are valid, okay? However, the concepts concerning light and electromagnetism did not fit anymore. So Galilean's idea about this of the latter, it states that sound requires a medium to propagate, right? Such as air, water, or maybe a solid medium. So before, they conclude that light was also requiring our medium to propagate. So, it is true that light can propagate in a media like water, solid, and air. But what about when the the light propagates when it passes through the vast space of the sun to earth, right? So, they called this gap as the hypothetical medium or the luminiferous ether. So, in the special relativity, this idea of the ether was debunked by the Michelson-Morley experiment, as you can see here in the image. So during their time, as I have said earlier, light being a wave was already acknowledged. So in the experiment, they have utilized two mirrors, a semi-transparent mirror or beam splitter that um, that distributed half of the light from the source wavelength to two separate mirrors, and a telescope to observe the light's final inertial I mean sorry to observe the light's final interferences pattern. Okay, so they reasoned that if the earth was moving through the stationary ether, the speed of the light measured along the earth's path should be different than the speed of light measured perpendicular to it. Okay, but in the end, they concluded that the ether is not real, because if it existed, the interference pattern should have shifted as the apparatus was rotated, as you can see here. So they observed there is no shifting, meaning the speed of light was measured to be the same in all directions. So regardless of the Earth's motion. So this demonstrated that the speed of light is constant, which is the second postulate of the special relativity that will be discussed by the next discussant. So another thing, the Galilean relativity defined addition as simply adding of the present velocities that we have. So in the illustration in the left part, in Galilean relativity, the velocity of the ball thrown by the man relative to the man on the ground is that it just adds the velocity that was created as the man throw it, and the velocity prime, which is the velocity or the speed of the truck. It just adds these values. Then, for example, we assign the velocity of the ball thrown by the man was 5 meters per second, and the moving truck is moving at a 10 meters per second. Then therefore, the velocity of the ball relative to the man on the ground is 15 meters per second. Okay? But um also, I mean also that Galilean relativity assumes that this velocity addition works also for light. For example, is this. So, the velocity of the beam relative to the man is we add the speed of light set as c to the velocity of the moving truck, which is this. So the c is 3 times 8, 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second based on Maxwell's equations. Then we add the velocity of the moving truck, which is 10 meters per second, and the total velocity of the beam relative to the man on the ground is 300 million 10 meters per second, which is wrong. The relativity postulate states that the beam of light for every inertial reference frame, so whether for the man holding it or for the man on the ground, would equal to c, or the speed of light, the 3 times 10 raised to 8. Okay? And yes, because the speed of light is constant, the Galilean transformation, or the classical rule for adding velocities, must be wrong. So this failure led to Einstein to propose the relativity postulate, and the second postulate, which is the constancy of the speed of light, which required developing a new transformation, which is the Lorentz transformation, that ultimately worked for the framework of the special relativity. And this will be further discussed by our next discussants. Okay. Next, we have the mass of energy. Since the constancy of speed of light led to profound changes like time dilation and length contraction, which when applied mathematically to a momentum and energy inevitably led to this famous equation, the E is equal to mc squared equivalence, and the resulting changes in the nature of mass. So there is a change in length, as you can see here at the ball is shrinking as it increase or approach the speed of light. Okay, now for our activity 3 titled Eureka. So the class will be divided into 7 groups. Each group will be having 5 members, and each member will be taking turns sharing their personal experiences involving motion, such as riding a car, a bus, a train, or observing from a moving vehicle. Then, this, as you all share, the group will discuss and answer this following guide questions. What physical behaviors were observed? Example, objects falling straight down, urgings not spilling sideways. Okay? How Another question is how these experiences show that the laws of physics remained consistent despite the motion. Then another is that why these observations support the idea that the absolute motion doesn't exist, aligning with the first postulate of relativity. So, okay, this is the rubrics that will guide you in formulating your answers. This activity is worth 12 points. Okay. And this will be your grouping that I will send in the GC. So this is your group for the activity 2 earlier, for the guide question earlier in the video, and another for this activity 3. Okay. For the activity 2 and 3, you may opt to just type your answer in Google Docs or MS Word. Then I will be sending a G Drive link for you guys to upload your output, okay, in our GC. So this for our evaluation, you may access our evaluation through this link, or this you may scan using you may also scan it using this QR code, and I'll be sending this as well in our GC. And there will be a multiple uh, and it 5 item multiple choice quiz. So this can be accessed until November 18, until 7 p.m. Okay? If you have troubles or have troubles in the time or deadline, you may message me. Okay? Then, in the evaluation, I've also included generalization, wherein you should at least answer this for at least 3 sentences. And this component is worth 5 points. And the rubrics is in our evaluation form already. So you may view it for you to be guided in formulating your answers. Okay? Then, for our final task, so this is part is completely optional. You will not obtain any points from accomplishing this. However, if you want to, you may write one question related to our topic that you would like to clarify, or if you're curious about it. So share it to me in our Google form. So formulate a question about a concept you're still unsure or found confusing during our discussion. So about the first postulate of relativity. Then here I saw an image that where is where Einstein is on it. So he said that you're living, you occupy space, and you have mass. Thus, you matter. Okay, guys? You matter, guys. So, if you have questions or need clarifications, please message me via PM. And thank you very much for listening and bearing with me. And I hope that you are all doing fine. I hope you're all well. And yeah, keep no external force stopping you. Thank you.